chosen ones. Pause for a moment, because what I'm about to share might be the message your soul has been yearning for. Have you ever experienced that stillness, when the noise of the world fades and you sense that God Himself has pressed pause on everything just to reach you? It's not coincidence, it's divine timing. Those rare, quiet moments aren't empty, they're filled with His presence. God often speaks not through chaos, but through calm. And today, this message may be one of those sacred interruptions, a whisper from heaven meant just for you. Think about the prophet Elijah. He was exhausted, broken, and hiding in a cave after facing overwhelming rejection and fear. The great prophet who once called down fire from heaven now found himself questioning his purpose. Yet, it was in that place of despair that God chose to speak, not with thunder, not with wind or fire, but with a gentle whisper. This detail, found in 1 Kings 19, carries profound truth. God's voice isn't always loud, but it's always clear to the heart that listens. In biblical history, this moment marked Elijah's renewal. Scientifically speaking, human beings are neurologically wired to respond deeply to quiet and stillness. The brain's alpha waves increase, promoting clarity and receptiveness. Perhaps this is why God often meets us in silence, where the soul can finally hear. Chosen ones, that same whisper is reaching out to you now. You may feel hidden, forgotten, or underestimated, but remember, God specializes in working behind the scenes. Throughout Scripture, He used obscurity as preparation. Moses in the desert, David in the fields, and Joseph in the prison. What looks like delay is often divine strategy. Isaiah 60:22 captures this truth perfectly. When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. Not when you're ready, not when others approve, but when the timing aligns with heaven's plan. So if you're watching this, it's not an accident. Divine messages don't need to shout. They simply arrive when your spirit is quiet enough to receive. God wants you to know that you haven't been overlooked. Every tear, every disappointment, every lonely night has been seen. He's been shaping you in silence, polishing your character like gold in the fire. And now His whisper is saying, rise, the time is near. So take a deep breath, still your heart, and listen closely, because what God is revealing next may just transform the way you see yourself, your pain, and your divine purpose. Point 1. God saw what they did behind your back. Chosen ones. Let me tell you something deeply spiritual and profoundly true. God saw what they did to you. He saw the betrayal that sliced through your heart in silence. The kind of pain you couldn't explain because you didn't want to seem weak. The kind of heartbreak that made you cry quietly at night while pretending to be strong in the daylight. You smiled through the storms, gave peace when they deserved silence, and extended grace when they offered nothing but cruelty. You see, you didn't lose when they betrayed you. You were simply being elevated into a chapter they were never meant to enter. The thing about betrayal, angels, is that it's not always a punishment. Sometimes it's a spiritual promotion in disguise. Think about it. Every great soul in history, Joseph, David, even Jesus, was betrayed before their divine assignment unfolded. Betrayal is heaven's way of revealing hearts. It exposes the counterfeit connections that could never walk with you into your destiny. When people turned against you, they weren't ruining your life, they were positioning you for purpose. God allowed them to hurt you, not to break you, but to show you who He is when everyone else walks away. You didn't have to fight back, and that's what made you powerful. The world tells us to clap back, to expose the lies, to get even. But chosen ones know something deeper. The battle was never yours. When you tried to defend yourself, God whispered, "Be still and know that I am God." That stillness wasn't weakness, it was obedience. It was faith that the same God who saw the betrayal also saw your restraint. Heaven takes notes on those moments when you could have retaliated, but instead, you trusted the process. Psychologists say that emotional suppression can be unhealthy, but what you did wasn't suppression. It was spiritual maturity. You learned to channel your emotions into prayer, your pain into purpose. You didn't bury your feelings, you surrendered them. There's a difference. Surrendering doesn't mean ignoring your pain. It means handing it to the only one who knows how to turn tears into transformation. Every silent tear was a sacred offering, every fake smile a seed of grace, and now that harvest is about to show. God says, "I'm your defender. I'm your justifier." Those aren't just comforting words, they're a divine legal declaration. In ancient Hebrew, defender translates to Goel, the Redeemer, the one who restores justice and reclaims what was stolen. When God defends you, it's not emotional, it's strategic. He sets divine order in motion. The same people who whispered against you will have to watch as he prepares a table before you, not out of revenge, but revelation. Because when God elevates you, he doesn't need to humiliate your enemies. He simply blesses you in front of them until they realize they were working against divine protection. And make no mistake, Earth Angel, your silence didn't go unnoticed. Heaven was watching. You were being tested not to prove your weakness, but your worthiness. The ones who betrayed you thought they won, but in truth, they simply disqualified themselves from the blessing attached to your name. You walked away empty-handed, but what they didn't know is that you carried divine favor, and favor cannot be stolen, manipulated, or mimicked. So when God says, "I'm your justifier," it means he's rewriting the story in your favor. Every lie will lose power. Every false narrative will crumble. Every unfair treatment will turn into a testimony. You won't even have to explain yourself. Your elevation will do that for you. So hold your peace, chosen one. You didn't lose anything by being kind. You just proved that light never fights darkness. It simply shines until the shadows disappear. The same heaven that saw your tears is about to reveal your triumph. Keep walking with grace, because your defender is already on the move, and this time he's fighting for you. Point 2. God is about to reward your silence. In a world where everyone screams to be heard, your quiet obedience stood out. You didn't argue, you didn't expose, you endured. And that, Earth Angel, is what separated you from the noise. While the world glorified the loud, the bold, and the boastful, you chose stillness. You chose patience. You chose to listen when others shouted, to build when others bragged, and to wait when others rushed. What looked like silence to others was actually your preparation season. You weren't being ignored, you were being refined. You see, the chosen ones are often hidden before they're revealed. God never sends his warriors into battle without training them in private. Think about it. David was anointed king long before he ever sat on the throne. Moses was called long before he ever led a nation. Even Jesus spent years in quiet growth before his ministry began. There's always a silent period where the noise of the world fades and divine instruction becomes the only sound you hear. During that time, you endured trials that weren't meant to break you, but to strengthen your discernment. You learned how to walk in faith, even when you couldn't see where you were going. You learned obedience, not the kind that comes from fear, but the kind that comes from trust. This world teaches people to hustle endlessly, to prove their worth through constant motion. But God operates differently. When he says, "Be still and know that I am God," he's not suggesting laziness. He's inviting surrender. You didn't have to fight for attention because your purpose was never built on attention. It was built on alignment. And that's exactly why your next season is not going to require effort. It's going to require arrival. Now let's make this real. Scientifically speaking, human beings are wired to believe that more action equals more progress. Dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, releases when we achieve something, making us crave more productivity, more validation, more noise. But spiritually, the kingdom operates in reverse. You don't manifest through panic. You manifest through peace. Your energy creates your atmosphere. When your heart is still, heaven moves. That's why your obedience mattered. It wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Your endurance through silence was your proof of faith. The times you felt forgotten were actually your greatest spiritual upgrades. God was fine-tuning your frequency to match your purpose. When he said, "You won't have to chase what's already looking for you," he meant it literally. Think about a radio signal. You don't chase the station. You simply tune into the right frequency. In the same way, your blessings aren't lost. They're just waiting for you to arrive in alignment. What's meant for you has been circling, waiting for the signal of your readiness. You see, when divine timing meets divine alignment, acceleration happens. Opportunities will start to appear naturally. Doors will open without you knocking. And people meant for your destiny will recognize you without introduction. That's what happens when a chosen one walks into a room. They don't demand presence. Their spirit announces them. The irony is, you spent years being underestimated, overlooked, and misunderstood because you didn't play the world's game. But God kept you hidden for a reason, so that when your light appeared, it wouldn't blend in, it would break darkness. This next chapter of your life isn't about striving, it's about stepping into what was already written. Your spirit has been through a wilderness, but that wilderness was your awakening. Every heartbreak, every delay, every closed door, it all trained you to recognize peace over popularity, purpose over pleasure, and calling over comfort. And now that you've mastered obedience, you don't need to chase anything. You are the magnet. You attract what aligns. So, chosen ones, take this as your confirmation. Your endurance has unlocked your elevation. You no longer need to run after what's yours. It's already running toward you. Stay still, stay faithful, and stay ready to receive. Because your season of waiting has turned into your moment of arrival. Point 3, your obedience shifted dimensions. Every no you said to the wrong person was more than just a boundary. It was a divine declaration that your soul refused to settle for less than what God designed for you. You thought you were just walking away from a toxic friendship, declining a tempting offer, or cutting ties with someone who drained your spirit. But in truth, every time you said no, when your heart wanted to say yes, you were rewriting your destiny in the spirit realm. You were closing portals that the enemy wanted open, sealing cracks in your energy that would have leaked your purpose. You see, the spiritual realm operates by alignment, not emotion. When you refused to chase what wasn't yours, heaven took note. Your no wasn't rejection, it was redirection. That small act of discipline, that quiet decision no one saw, sent a ripple across realms. Angels recorded it. Demons recognized it. Because when a chosen one walks away from temptation, all of heaven moves to protect that obedience. You thought it was just self-respect, but it was actually spiritual warfare. God doesn't reward convenience, he rewards conviction. And that conviction is what positioned you for divine elevation. Every time you walked away from comfort, you stepped closer to calling. You may have cried, doubted, or even questioned why your kindness was met with betrayal. But let me tell you, those moments weren't punishments. They were refinements. You were being tested in silence so you could be trusted in abundance. Because not everyone can handle the spotlight. God is preparing it for you. Not everyone is built for the purity of the mission that lives inside your spirit. And while you were grieving what you lost, heaven was preparing what you're about to gain. Angels have been moving in formation, blocking people, opportunities, and even distractions that could sabotage your next chapter. Some doors didn't close. They were sealed by divine command, because the next stage of your life requires protection, not popularity. You may not have understood why isolation felt so heavy, but isolation was incubation. God had to pull you away from the noise so you could hear the whisper of destiny. The discipline you showed, saying no to what wasn't right for you, is the same energy that activates heaven's favor. That's why doors you didn't even knock on are beginning to open. That's why blessings are finding their way to your name. Because your obedience created movement in realms unseen. You honored yourself, and in doing so, you honored God. That's why angels now guard the very paths your feet are about to walk. Every no was an act of faith. Every goodbye was a sacrifice. Every moment you resisted what glittered but wasn't gold strengthened your spiritual armor. The world teaches that saying yes brings success, but heaven teaches that saying no brings alignment. The difference is one feeds your ego, the other feeds your purpose. So when you see doors open that you didn't apply for, favor flowing that you didn't earn, or peace surrounding you where chaos once lived, remember, it's not random. It's the fruit of your restraint. God saw you choose silence over gossip, truth over convenience, and peace over revenge. And now, the same heaven that watched your pain in private is about to showcase your power in public. Chosen one, your discipline was not unnoticed. Heaven took attendance on every lonely night you chose purity over popularity, prayer over panic, and faith over fear. And because of that, you're not walking into this next season alone. Heaven's army has already gone before you. The stage God is preparing isn't for entertainment, it's for elevation. The lights won't blind you because your spirit has already been trained in the dark. So walk boldly. The same no that once cost you everything is now the very reason you're about to receive everything you prayed for. Point 4. The enemy's plan failed publicly. Chosen one. Let's talk about what really happens when people plot behind your back, thinking they're writing your downfall, not knowing that they're actually helping God write your comeback. You see, when you carry divine light, darkness naturally gets uncomfortable. It's not personal, it's spiritual. People will smile in your face and clap for your small wins, but deep down they're whispering prayers for your failure. They don't realize that every curse spoken against you becomes the fertilizer that grows your purpose. It's the irony of divine favor. The more they try to bury you, the deeper your roots of faith grow. When God anoints someone, that person becomes untouchable in ways the human mind can't comprehend. The universe starts rearranging itself to protect you, redirect you, and elevate you. And that's exactly what happened with you. Those people who schemed, who misjudged your kindness for weakness, who thought their gossip would ruin your name, they didn't know that heaven keeps receipts. They played politics. You stayed prayerful. They plotted manipulation. You practiced meditation. They whispered rumors. You whispered gratitude. And while they were trying to pull you down into chaos, you stayed in stillness. And that's where God did his best work. The transformation wasn't loud, it wasn't public. It happened in your quiet seasons, in your broken nights, and in the moments when you almost gave up. And now, look at you. You're glowing, not because everything's perfect, but because you've learned to find peace in imperfection. That glow isn't makeup or confidence alone. It's divine energy. It's what happens when the hand of God says, "Enough, my child has suffered enough. Now let's show them who I've been preparing." The fascinating thing is, this pattern isn't new. It's woven into the spiritual history of humanity. Think about Joseph in the Bible. His own brothers plotted to destroy him. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and wrote him off completely. But what happened? God flipped the script. That same Joseph became a ruler in Egypt. And those same brothers had to come before him for help. It wasn't revenge, it was revelation. It showed that divine favor doesn't just lift you up. It teaches others who they were really dealing with. The same dynamic applies to you. The people who tried to block your blessings are now forced to witness your breakthrough. They're not watching a revenge story. They're watching a redemption story written by the Creator himself. Because when you're chosen, you don't have to fight dirty. You don't have to prove your worth. You simply have to remain faithful, even when it feels unfair, because faithfulness is the seed that activates divine justice. And this is where it gets powerful. The energy you gave out, love, kindness, loyalty, it didn't disappear. Energy never dies. It circles back. You planted seeds of good intention even when others were sowing envy. And now those seeds are blossoming in front of everyone who doubted you. That's why Isaiah 54:17 hits differently for the chosen ones. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. It doesn't say the weapon won't form. It says it won't prosper. Meaning, yes, betrayal will happen. Backstabbing will happen. You'll be underestimated, mocked, and even isolated. But none of it will win. Because when you're chosen, your story isn't written by them. It's written by God. And every time someone tries to write your ending, God adds a new chapter. So keep your peace, keep your faith, and let your glow do the talking. The same mouths that cursed you will soon say, "I always knew you'd make it." And you'll just smile, knowing they didn't make you, so they can't break you. Point 5. God is about to speak your name in rooms you've never entered. You thought being unseen meant being forgotten. You looked around and saw others getting opportunities, attention, and recognition, while you remained in the shadows, wondering if maybe you missed your moment. But chosen one, what you didn't realize was that God had you in divine isolation for a reason. Hiddenness was never punishment. It was protection. The same way a seed must disappear beneath the soil before it can break through as a tree, you had to be buried in silence so your roots could grow deep. God wasn't ignoring you. He was maturing you away from noise, away from imitation, and away from premature exposure that could have destroyed your destiny. There's a sacred principle in nature. Anything valuable is always hidden before it's revealed. Diamonds are buried deep underground. Gold must be mined from darkness. Even a baby grows in the secret place of the womb before it ever meets the light. In the same way, God hid you because your light was too precious to be exposed before the right time. You see, when you're truly chosen, you don't just represent yourself, you represent a divine purpose. And God won't let that purpose be contaminated by environments or people who can't handle its weight. That's why so many people misunderstood you. They couldn't read your energy, and honestly, it wasn't meant for them to. Now, that season of hiddenness, that quiet, frustrating, God, when is it my turn? Season is coming to an end. Something is shifting in the unseen realms. Divine alignment is taking place. People are being positioned to meet you, not by accident, but by appointment. These are not the same type of people you once chased for approval. No, these are kingdom connections. Individuals who carry discernment, who will recognize your light instead of being threatened by it. They'll speak your language of spirit, not ego. They'll add peace, not confusion. They'll remind you of who you are when the world tries to make you forget. And here's the part that'll make you smile. The ones who once overlooked you. The ones who ignored your kindness, dismissed your gifts, or pretended not to see you. They're about to realize exactly who they passed by. Because when God decides to elevate a chosen one, He doesn't ask for permission. He simply opens doors no man can shut. You're not just entering rooms, you're being summoned into them. What used to be rejection was really redirection. The people who rejected you were never meant to carry the weight of your calling. But now, the tables are turning, and they'll look to you for the very guidance they once dismissed. Science even mirrors this truth. Think about metamorphosis. A caterpillar goes into a cocoon, seemingly disappearing from the world. From the outside, it looks dead, forgotten, hidden. But inside, it's transforming into something completely new. That's what your isolation did. It was your cocoon season. God was restructuring your spiritual DNA. You were being built to fly higher than the environment you started in. And once you emerge, there's no going back to crawling among the same leaves you used to. So, chosen one, don't despise the hiding. Don't think the silence meant absence. It was divine preparation for a loud revelation. You were never behind, you were being positioned. God's timing isn't slow, it's strategic. You're stepping into the phase where divine connections meet divine purpose. And everything that didn't make sense before will suddenly align. Get ready, because the same people who couldn't see your value before are about to realize they've been in the presence of someone God Himself chose, refined and released for such a time as this. Point 6, you aren't crazy. You're prophetic. Remember that one time you felt uneasy for no reason, then later the truth came out. Maybe someone's mask slipped, or an event unfolded exactly the way your spirit warned you it would. That wasn't coincidence, and it wasn't paranoia. That was discernment, the divine radar only the chosen ones carry. See, there's a difference between suspicion and spiritual sensitivity. Suspicion comes from fear, but discernment, that comes from divine awareness. It's God's way of whispering, pay attention. Something deeper is happening here. Chosen one, you were wired differently for a reason. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's a function. You read energy like a book. You notice the shift in tone before an argument breaks out. You sense when someone's spirit is uneasy, even while their smile stays intact. Most people rely on what they see, but you operate on what you feel. And while that might have made you feel too much growing up, too alert, too intense, too cautious, it's because you were never built for ignorance. You were built for insight. Psychologists might call it empathic intuition or even emotional intelligence. But spiritually, it runs much deeper than that. God has placed a divine frequency inside you, allowing you to tune into the emotional and energetic wavelengths of the people and spaces around you. Studies in neuroscience even show that empathic individuals have more active mirror neurons in their brains, cells that literally allow them to feel what others feel. You're not imagining it. Your spirit has been scientifically proven to be more receptive, more aware, and more reactive to subtle cues most people miss. That's why you can't ignore your gut. Your spirit speaks through those quiet nudges, the sudden discomfort, the whisper that says, something's off, while others rush blindly into situations. You're analyzing energies, feeling out intentions, and sensing motives that aren't spoken. You see beyond the words, you hear beyond the sound. And yes, it can be exhausting, because being a watcher in a world that loves illusions is never easy. You often wish you didn't notice so much. You wish you could turn it off just for a day, just to rest, but you can't, because your gift isn't meant to be convenient. It's meant to be protective. In the Bible, watchers were those set apart to observe, to guard, and to deliver divine warnings. That's you, chosen one. You are the spiritual gatekeeper in your circle, the one who sees the storm before it arrives. You may not always have the words to explain how you know, but you just know. God trusts you with early sight because he knows you'll use it wisely. You were never meant to fit in with the crowd. You were meant to see what the crowd overlooks. This discernment isn't about judgment. It's about clarity. It's about recognizing spirits for what they truly are, whether they come wrapped in light or shadow. Your energy senses deception because it's tuned to truth. That's why liars grow uncomfortable around you. That's why fake people avoid eye contact when you enter the room. They can feel that your spirit reads them like an open page. So stop second-guessing that inner alarm, that subtle pull in your chest, that sudden shift in atmosphere that only you seem to notice. That's your gift in action. That's your spirit doing its divine duty. The world needs more eyes that see beyond sight, and that's exactly what you are. A watcher, a seer, a guardian of divine awareness in human form. Don't dim your perception to make others comfortable. Don't silence your spirit to fit the noise of the world. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to foresee. Point 7. God is about to reveal why you had to wait. Every delay had a purpose. Every closed door was a divine redirection. You thought you were falling behind, missing opportunities, or being forgotten. But in truth, you were being positioned. Chosen one. Timing is God's language of alignment. When it felt like life was standing still, heaven was quietly rearranging things behind the scenes, so that when the moment arrived, you would be ready. And so would everything connected to your destiny. Think about it. Even the stars take billions of years to align before they shine in their full brilliance. The same is true for you. God didn't withhold your blessings. He was refining your character to sustain them. Many people receive things before they're mature enough to handle them, and that's why they lose them. But you had to be prepared. You had to go through the fire, not to be destroyed, but to be purified. God says you couldn't have received it earlier because you wouldn't have recognized it as me. That's deep. Sometimes we confuse blessings with distractions. Before spiritual maturity, what feels like love could be temptation. What looks like success could be sabotage. So God waited. He waited until you could see with spiritual eyes, until you could discern what was sent by Him and what was sent to test you. This is the season where clarity replaces confusion. Everything that once made no sense, the detours, the delays, the heartbreaks, will start to reveal their purpose. You'll look back and realize that what you thought was rejection was actually divine protection. The people who walked away were never meant to walk with you into the next chapter. And when this understanding finally hits you, it'll bring tears, not from pain, but from realization. You'll see how every unanswered prayer was secretly answered in a higher form. You'll understand that God's not yet was never a no. It was simply, wait, I'm building you for it. And in that moment, peace will flood your soul. You'll know that you were never late. You were right on divine time. Chosen ones, this word is confirmation. You've stepped into divine timing. God says, this is the first time I'm revealing this truth so clearly to you, because now you're ready to carry it. So stop doubting, stop shrinking, stop apologizing for surviving what was meant to break you. You are not behind schedule. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Keep walking in obedience. Keep glowing in humility. Keep listening for that gentle whisper, because, chosen one, this time heaven's spotlight is on you.